be expected.
To be expected, yeah.
Look, Dom, just calm down a bit. Calm down. I know the budgie's dead, but there's nothing I can actually do about it. And it's not an SNP matter. It's not for me, the First Minister, to fix all the budgies, to bring budgies back from life. It's not something I've got under my purview. I can't do it. I'm great.
And secondly, the president invited his son Hunter to the state dinner last night. I'm wondering if you could take us into the thinking and decision-making of why the president decided to invite
I'm just not going to get into family discussion, personal family discussion. As you know, Hunter is his son. I'm just not going to get into it.
Let me ask you this. If Hunter Biden wasn't the president's son, would he have invited someone who had just reached a plea agreement with federal prosecutors 2 days earlier?
A couple of things. Again, that's his son. He's a family member. It is not uncommon for family members to attend events at the White House. You could look at past presidents. I'm sure you have. So that is not uncommon. As it relates to anything related to Hunter, I'm just not going to respond to it from here.
Can I follow up on that?
No, I just called in somebody. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Kirby wouldn't answer James's question, though. Are you going to answer the question? I mean, not a reasonable question to ask, whether the President of the United States was involved, as this message seems to suggest, in some sort of a coercive conversation for business dealings by his son. Is that something, if he wasn't, then maybe you should tell us?
So here's the thing, and I appreciate the question. I believe my colleague at the White House Counsel has answered this question already, has dealt with this, has made it very clear. I just don't have anything to share outside of what my colleagues have shared, and so I would refer you to him and the DOJ. Just not going to comment from here.
Text message
What I can tell you is I know that my colleague has dealt with this. He addressed this at the White House Counsel. I just don't have anything else to share.
In the shakedown attempt?
I just answered the question. I just answered the question.
No, you didn't. Yes or no? Was the president involved in the shakedown attempt?
Stephen, I just answered the question. It's not up to you how I answer the question. I just answered the question by telling you my colleagues at the White House Counsel has dealt with this, and I would refer you to them. Go ahead.
Can you just remind us what your colleague said from the White House Counsel so we have it?
I would refer you to them, and they will share their statement with all of you.
My question is about your statements from that podium. You've stated that the president stands by his comment from the 2020 campaign that he never once discussed his son's overseas business dealings with his son. And you stood at that podium and you reaffirmed that. Do you stand by your reaffirmation?
What I will say is nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And I will leave it there. Anything else, I will refer you to the White House Counsel.
This is not a change?
I just answered the question. You just asked me, does my statement change? I just told you nothing has changed. That's answering the question. Go ahead.
Go ahead. The president was there 2 days
Go ahead,
prior.
Stephen. I'm calling on your colleague right now. Go ahead.
Thank you. To follow up on my colleague, is there anything that you can say with regard to this text message and what the president's son was alleging? Was the president there or not?
I would refer you to my colleagues at the White House Counsel. They have addressed this, and I refer you to them. Go ahead.
Karine, have you spoken to the president about this? Have you asked him whether he was there with his son on July 30th?
This is not a conversation that I've had with the president. Again, I would refer you to the White House Counsel.
Do you plan to have that conversation with the president?
No.
Did the president speak with the attorney general at all last night?
I cannot say if the president had had a conversation with the attorney general last night. What I can refer you to is the White House Counsel's office as it relates to the allegations. They've already addressed this. This is something for them to deal with. I refer you to the Department of Justice on anything else if you don't want to speak to the White House Counsel's office.
And there was reporting earlier in the week that after the plea agreement was reached by Hunter Biden, that the president felt relieved that that part of it was behind him. Is that true? Can you speak to his mindset?
I can't speak to that. I cannot speak to the president's mindset. Again, I would refer you to the White House Counsel's office.
Well.
My God, it
of my
lives!
demise.
It lives! It's alive! It's alive, I say!
Reports of my demise have been greatly
It's
exaggerated,
Great,
John.
great to see you back. At least I'm not sitting here talking to myself anymore. In fact, there's going to be 3 of us tonight, isn't there, Ben?
Oh yeah, it's a freeway, baby.
It's
a
a
freeway. To
three-way.
introduce our guests. Bring
And
him on.
tonight
Bring him
we
on.
have the wonderful James Bembridge Esquire, QPM, DFC, Distinguished Flying Cross, or whatever, with bar. So welcome to the show, James. Thank you for attending.
Hello. Hi, John. Thank you for having me again. Thanks, John and Ben.
It's our pleasure, as always. So tonight,
It always
James
is.
is just going to be our third wheel. You know, a role that used to be done by another team member that appears to have been strangely absent.
Well, do you know what? I am very happy to have James here. I am mostly because, it takes a lot of the strain off me.
I'm very used to being a third wheel, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. Right. So I tell you what, settle back, because what I want to do is I want to tell you guys a little story. So imagine if you will, there was a country where things were somewhat in disarray, and there was someone in that country that was plotting and planning to overthrow the government, to remove them and replace them with themselves. Now, you'd imagine that country, if that happened and it failed, then people would be going, well, that's only fair that it failed, because you shouldn't be doing that. That's not how, democracy and politicians normally work.
Democracy.
But that country that I'm talking about, and the man that's leading it, is called Nicola. No, sorry, Humza. That country's Scotland, because that's basically what they're trying to say. They deserve a coup. They want to unilaterally now declare independence and just say, we're independent of England. So it seems to be catching, this coup business. What do you think of that?
Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think that he's already been completely knocked back with his ideas, isn't he? So Humza's trending at the moment. And why is Humza trending? It's because he was gonna have a Scottish envoy to go and talk to the EU about Scotland joining, and the EU have turned around and said, no.
Not gonna do that.
We'll only talk to someone approved by the UK government. Basically, I think they've got more of a chance talking to us than they do to Humza, because let's face it,
Yeah.
they're not going to approve Humza.
No.
What do you think, James?
Well, no, I was just saying to John before, why is it that the SNP don't believe in the British Union, but they do believe in the European one?
See,
And
this is the
the
question.
European...
It's quite simple. It's because it's English. Scottish hate English because they rule us with an iron rod. They don't give us more in rate support grant. They don't over-represent us in their parliament. They stole our oil. But yeah. So basically, the people, the kind of people that support the SNP, just want independence at all costs, even if it involved razing their own country and their homes to the ground.
But those kinds of Scottish people, they're almost like people from Liverpool. How they kind of paint themselves out to be these almost oppressed minority or something.
Yeah.
And I was saying to someone the other day, I think there's what was it I said? There's irrational forms of bigotry and there's rational forms of bigotry. So it would be irrational to be bigoted against someone who was black or gay, for instance. Whereas I think it's entirely rational to be bigoted against someone that comes from Liverpool.
Well, there,
I mean, it's not
there
without
you go.
reason.
He's only alienated an entire city.
5 minutes into the show, he's alienated the entire city.
If you're a Scouser, if you're a Scouser,
my best friends are from Liverpool.
if you're a Scouser, I can only apologise for our guest. What about the Welsh? What about the Welsh, James? You want to throw them under the bus as well while you're on?
You should get me started on the Welsh. No, best just avoid the subject. But seriously though, what I would like to ask John, given that you do live in Scotland,
yeah,
I mean, what were you kind of hearing on the grounds there when the SNP, is he Hamza or whatever, Yusuf, was trying to bring forward that hate crime bill, when Nicola was trying to bring that trans rights bill, whatever it was. What were people saying in Scotland, even SNP supporters?
Yeah, generally, when it was Nicola that was in charge, she could do no wrong. She just basically could do no wrong, and the SNP supporters were sticking behind her. When she left, things have started to go. The wagons have started to come off the cart somewhat, and a lot of them are now starting to see that maybe things aren't going quite as well as they should have. And they're not quite as well thought of as they were. So people are starting to listen and look, and they're now saying, well, maybe Nicola wasn't such a good leader, and maybe some of the things she did wasn't that great. Having said that, most of your average Scot doesn't bother. They're not listening to anything that's going on. They're not worried about the hate crime bills. They're not worried about the removal of their rights. They were just as compliant little sheep as everyone else when it came to queuing up and masking and everything. Why?
Because let's face it, and half of my family still live in Merry Hill, right? The average Scot not only does not care about the politics going on in Holyrood, they don't know about the politics going on in Holyrood.
Yeah.
And they're just not switched on to the process, and they just do what they're told to get along.
Yeah,
that's the reality.
As long as they can go to the football and drink themselves senseless every weekend, basically that seems to be Scotland. Did you see that,
John? Introduce the show.
Yeah, but did you see that? Did you see that clip on Twitter about the people having actual sex in the middle of the grass market in Edinburgh? It's absolutely ridiculous. On the road.
They did a Katie Hopkins.
What? I don't know.
They did a Katie Hopkins.
No, they were lying. They were lying on the road.
Or something.
She did that with him.
Levi.
Did she? But anyway, I'm not quite sure, but I suspect it might have been two guys.
No, it would be, wouldn't it? I mean,
so with that, I'd like to welcome one and all.
I can say these things as the token homosexual on this podcast.
Yeah, James is only here to bring the diversity. It's just a pity he's not black. Anyway,
is our ESG score going up?
I doubt. Maybe this could be the big break that we need in YouTube. We've got diversity at last.
Just introduce the show, you old Scottish fool.
With that, I'd like to welcome everyone to this episode 230 of Chasing Descent Live.
Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yo, I got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave.
We are back.
Sorry, what?
Now we're back in.
So what were you saying, James? Scottish people and whatever.
No. I was just saying how you were saying that no Scottish folk don't care about if there's rights being taken away with them when it's regards to free speech or women's spaces or stuff like that, so long as they can watch the football and have a pint in a pub and stuff like that. But Nicola Sturgeon was trying to clamp down on drinking, wasn't she, by making it so that the pint glasses couldn't advertise brands of beer and stuff. I mean, it's a slippery slope. And then you have Labour. Then you have Labour, John, who say that if they get in, then they're going to ban smoking.
Yeah. But that applies to the whole. Does that not apply to the entire nation if they're banning smoking in Labour?
I'd imagine so. Yeah.
So Scotland's weird anyway, because you can't have like you can't have a multi-pack saver now on drink. So how you used to be able to like buy 6 cans and you'd get one free. You're not allowed to do that kind of thing in Scotland now.
Don't you have like a minimum price per unit as well?
Yeah, but it's not that high, so drink isn't too bad. But if you order it online from England, those rules don't apply. So the whole thing's absolutely ridiculous. So, Virgin Wine or whatever, they can give you discounts and send you freebies and things, and it doesn't apply to them because they're not based in Scotland.
Well, exactly.
No, I'm with the SNP. I take a very dim view on drinking.
I'm on a water tonight.
There, James?
I'm on a water tonight. That's a gin and tonic, isn't it?
I take a very dim view on drinking, I just said, as I took another swig of the stuff.
That's a gin and tonic, isn't it?
I was wondering what in the drink. Are you partaking in a gin and tonic tonight?
Oh no, this is just some foul white wine that I got at the garage.
And do you check the quality of your wine by
the percentage of alcohol?
Yes. So highest percentage of alcohol and lowest cost. That's a good bottle.
Yes.
That was you when you were living in France, wasn't it, John?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, you couldn't get a dear bottle of wine in France. Well, you probably could, but there would be no point because there was just so much choice, and it was perfectly drinkable.
Fair enough.
Right, Ben.
One of my friends recently went to, I forget which part of France. It was, I think quite a wealthy, exclusive part, but she had to fly into Bordeaux.
Okay.
And she said the city of Bordeaux, people think London's bad, with like tensions between some migrants or let's just say different communities or whatever. And she said in Bordeaux it was like like the kind of prickly feeling you get in the air when there's about to be a storm. It was like that, the tension between the migrants and the people who were born in Bordeaux. It was like, and they were so violent towards my friend Nedka. She's a very beautiful lady, and they were almost like aggressively, almost suggesting that she should give them, sex and stuff like that. It was awful, apparently.
Yeah.
You know what? I think tensions are really going to boil over in France, especially in Paris, where they like to violently protest. The French like to violently protest there every other weekend anyway, over something or other. But I think the tensions are going to boil over at some point. I mean, one thing I will say in Emmanuel Macron's favour is he does seem to understand that if he wants to continue, at least his party continue in the position that they're in, you need to start
protecting French culture.
Yeah. And I think he's understanding that at this point. But, John, what's the first news item?
The first news item, Ben, is over to you, because tell me, where is Prigozhin?
Prigozhin, the leader of the Wagner group in Russia, the mercenaries. Well, he's in Belarus, John, or should I say Belarus?
Although I did see an image of someone sleeping on a bench, allegedly in Belarus, and it looked the spitting image of Prigozhin.
I mean, do you think he would be sleeping on a bench in Belarus? I mean, he could well be sleeping somewhere in Belarus.
He could be sleeping with the fishies in Belarus, couldn't he?
I just personally think that Vladimir Putin would not let him just walk away. No, I really don't.
Yeah, okay. So Vladimir Putin was interviewed, and I saw this interview today, actually. He was interviewed by, I think it was a couple of years ago. He was interviewed by some Russian-speaking journalist or whatever, and he was asked if there was anything he could never forgive, and he said twice, betrayal. I could never forgive betrayal. And I think when Putin made his speech on Saturday, was it Saturday? Yeah. After the coup had ceased to be in motion, he called Prigozhin a traitor twice, didn't he? So I think
yes.
I said it on Saturday. I don't think he's got long left. It's just a question of time, in my view.
What I don't understand is, John, why did this man, and I don't even know how you pronounce his name, how do you do it? Prigozhin. Right. So what was his plan? Why was he marching towards Moscow with only 25,000 troops for hire?
Well,
did he really think he could take Moscow with 25,000?
No, I don't think he did, because I think what he, and I went into this on Saturday, but what I think he was trying to do, it was either one of two scenarios. One, he lost it and he's suffering from PTSD or whatever, because, he's been banging on since February about the fact that the Russian army haven't been supporting him. He's not getting the ammunition he needs. His men have been dying and all that. And he's been banging on and on and on about that. And then he moved into Rostov-on-Don, which strangely enough is twinned with Glasgow. Right. So anyway, they made it personal. But anyway, so he moves into Rostov-on-Don, and he takes over the Russian military building, because that's one of the generals he had a beef with. Now, the whole thing was started in Prigozhin's mind by the fact he said he was attacked, his men were attacked, a position that they held was attacked by a missile from behind, which meant it came from Russia. So
yes.
it either did or it didn't. We'll never find out. Okay, if it did, it was probably an accident. But either way, so Prigozhin says he's going, and because of the things that he was doing, for instance, saying that they weren't going for Putin, they were going for the defense minister and a couple of the top generals. This guy Shoigu, he hates Shoigu. They've had a constant feud since you've seen the two of them on screen. But he said he wasn't going for regime change. He was just wanting to shake up the defense ministry, I think, basically. But what I think he thought was that he was going to get support on the way there from the Russian army, from the towns and things, and he would pick up all that support as he was moving to Moscow. And by the time he got to Moscow, basically the Russian army would be his, and he would be the man that would move in and replace Putin. And that's not quite how it happened, is it?
What I don't understand is how the kind of North London sourdough munching sect of the mainstream media were salivating over this, almost had shivers of pleasure.
I understand it.
Well, I don't, because in my view, Putin is the voice of sanity in that country at the moment. He's holding everyone back.
I don't agree with that.
No, I don't agree with that.
Well, yes, he is, because he's holding them back. Because everybody else that you've ever listened to or spoke to or seen speaking from Russia has been much harder lined than what Putin's saying. So,
okay, so that's my point.
So why would you want anyone else to take over at this point in time?
And especially, why would you want a wannabe warlord to take
over? Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. And it is very simple, the reason that the mainstream media are salivating at the bit, or were salivating at the bit, because of this. Because their narrative is simple, it's one-lined, it's actually two words. And it's like a doctrine for them. It's Putin bad.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, yeah.
So it doesn't matter if Prigozhin worse, Putin bad. And if anyone or anything can do something in order to stop Putin, then as far as they're concerned, Putin bad. Because let's face it, my stance on this whole situation is quite simple. I support the governments of neither Russia or Ukraine, because all I see is a bunch of innocent civilians on both sides that are going to end up dead, and that's not something I want to be seeing.
And and don't get me wrong. I mean, when I say Putin's a voice of sanity, I think I called him out quite explicitly on Saturday night. I mean, I said the guy is a product of the KGB. He is a psychopath, but
yes, he is.
He's a dangerous psychopath, but at least he seems to be working towards a plan that doesn't involve thermonuclear war with the rest of the world. And that's the thing that I don't understand, because America and the UK and the rest of the West seem to be involved in some sort of regime change that they want to occur in Russia that does involve thermonuclear war with the rest of the world. I just want to I'd like to survive, and I'd like there to be a planet for our children to grow up on, rather than than this Holocaust that they seem to be trying to provoke. And they're doing it again, because NATO's now made a statement, and when they're flying over the Baltic states, the ones that they look after or protect, like Lithuania, Estonia and all that, they're now putting their planes in a combat footing instead of an air police footing. So that means that they are ready to engage if anything should occur. Now, you're right next to Russia. You are slap bang right next to Russia. So what's NATO trying to do? They're trying to stir up more trouble. They're trying to go for an actual shooting war. Do they want a hot war with Russia? Do they think he's been weakened that much? I don't.
Well, all I can say is I think they're both psychos, the leaders of both of those countries. Mm-hmm. One of them certainly is probably driven by some kind of narcotic on a daily basis.
He's admitted as much, Zelensky.
Yeah. When did he admit that?
He admitted to taking cocaine.
Tremendous.
But the point of the matter is, I used to coin myself like a filthy lefty, but now I think I'm just an anarchist. I don't really think the idea of big government in any country is a good thing, and I don't support the governments of these countries. And the actions that are being taken right now are by the government of these countries. They're not by the citizenry. Mm-hmm. And personally speaking, I don't know. I think it's ridiculous at this point. Well, but you're right, John. In so much as NATO is trying, in my opinion, is trying to poke the bear.
Yeah. So here's scenario 2, right? Here's scenario 2. So an accounting error finds in your favour. 6.2 billion has been released towards Ukraine. Okay.
Wow, 2 days. That was a good chance card.
2 days later, Prigozhin goes off the reservation and starts spouting the Western narrative that Russian soldiers are dying at the rate of 10 for every 1 Ukrainian. Russia's not making much progress because they don't have the equipment. Their equipment's breaking down. They don't have the ammunition to sustain. Now, and remember, we have seen the amount of artillery that Russia was throwing into Ukraine while they were doing this, the siege on Bakhmut, and all along that front, they were outperforming Ukraine 10, 15 to 1 at that point when it came to firing artillery at them. So a lot of what Prigozhin's...
fire artillery, how much of it's going to hit?
Well, these things are precision guided these days. Most of it, I mean, look at the stuff that Russia just took out Ukrainian arms dump last night. And that's gone.
I mean, my question is this.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's hitting or not. My point there was that Prigozhin's saying they don't have any ammunition, yet they were throwing it continually at Ukraine when Ukraine only had Ukraine had run out of ammo. The West has ran out of ammo to send to Ukraine, and the Russians are still throwing it at them, So Prigozhin's saying they don't have any ammo. Well, maybe he's not getting any ammo, but do you think maybe the Russians or Putin saw this happening and thought, let's just take our foot off the gas a little bit and make sure Wagner's not as strong as he could be? I don't know. It's all supposition and speculation at this point. But
Yeah, because obviously Wagner are mercenaries for hire. They're not actually the Russian army.
No, they're not the
So,
Russian army.
if there was I mean, you could be right, because if there were rumblings of this attempted coup, essentially, he could have simply said, "Well, let's stop sending them the ammunition. Let's let them just burn themselves out, or something like that." But my question is this: why would we believe either the Russian or the Ukrainian or the mainstream Western narrative on this situation? Because all of these people, all of these governments, all of these organizations, their biggest success story, I would say, is propaganda. It's propaganda from everywhere. You know,
of course.
How can you believe it? We're not there. We're not on the ground. We don't know what's happening.
Well, you can't believe it. But I mean, for instance, look at that. Those Ukrainian army posts a thing today. They've released a video saying they've taken over a Rovokin or something, some town that was formerly occupied by Russia.
Right.
There's like 10 of them in somebody's garden. That's all you can see. So this video proves nothing. It means there's 10 Ukrainian soldiers standing in somebody's garden. You've taken over a garden. I mean, you need to show us the town that you're supposed to have taken over. You can't just take a photograph of 10 people in a garden and say, yeah, it's like that's just like piling into James's flat and saying we've occupied Chelsea, you know.
but John, about the mainstream narrative and the propaganda, the thing is, if they don't have their journalists there on the ground, well, actually, if they have them on the ground, the propaganda might be even far worse. But what happens? There's videos that are sent to like Reuters, then Reuters distribute them towards channels like MSNBC or the BBC or CNN and stuff like that. And that's what we saw in the start of lockdown when we had those clips from China with people with COVID, you know, just collapsing on the street, when we now know that that's actually not that's not what happens with COVID. And so Reuters gave that footage to the BBC, Daily Mail, stuff like that. Laura Dodsworth wrote a book called A State of Fear on how the government were manipulating us and you know, mentally, I forget what the term is, but mentally pushing us and nudging us to wear masks and all that sort of stuff. She contacted the Telegraph, the Daily Mail. Some of the publications say, do they actually know where that footage came from in China and who took it and where it was and stuff like that? And they said, no, we just got it from Reuters. So
so they're
no journalism. Really, journalism just isn't going on these days because most places can't afford to send people there on the ground to see what is really happening. Unfortunately,
well, it's like footage I put out. People could ask me, do you know where that footage came from? And I would say, yes, my camera, because I went and did it. You know,
but
they don't do it anymore.
It's also like the TIE fighter.
Yeah. So if you don't know, James, John put a video out about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Of a TIE fighter crashed and. What was the caption you put with it, John?
What was it? Ukraine Ghost of Kiev brings down Russian TIE fighter. on M4 motorway or something like that. Now it was in the A3 autobahn in Germany. It was a TIE fighter. It had crashed into the central reservation because it was made by Lucasfilms and it had Lucasfilms on the bottom corner. It was an advert for Sky in Germany.
It made the mainstream media, James.
There was two stormtroopers standing there at it with high vis on, and a cone, and a cone, and the things had a little fire, and a car's driving by, right? And it made mainstream media. It was reported in at least 2 other countries because the thing had over 1 million views.
Right. I thought you were joking. I thought you just took a photo of that and then put it on. So was that the mainstream media actually reported that?
Yeah. It was reported in at least 2 other countries.
Where was Mariana Spring then?
I mean, it was shared over 1 million times.
Yeah.
It was shared over 1 million times. 2 international mainstream publications reported it as fact.
On
it's like-
TV.
it said Lucasfilm for Sky Movies at the bottom,
Yep.
and they didn't even bother to look.
Crop it off. Did they not even crop that part off?
No.
No.
Oh no! I just
No.
put the whole thing up. I mean, I didn't doctor it at all. I put the whole thing up, and all I did was put a title on it saying "Ghost of Kiev" or something like that. Brings down Russian TIE fighter on M4 motorway, and that was it. Or on the motorway
This is
out of
media
Kiev or
for you
something
now.
like that. And the
This
whole thing just went nuts.
But this is
Have
media
you
for you
been-
now.
Have you been keeping up with Mariana's documentaries on the BBC about her investigations into misinformation? So.
No.
No, I haven't really. To be fair, I saw the
And the reason I haven't is because, my time is sacred and I don't want to rot my brain.
No, that's understandable.
I mean, I've said it before on the show, but I don't know if you know. She was called out by Carl Benjamin, also known as Sargon of Akkad.
Yeah,
Because
I saw.
she spoke about him in Mariana in Conspiracy Land, and the things she was saying were factually and provably inaccurate. And with him calling this out and pointing out what was inaccurate, instead of addressing what she had done, she blocked him.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting that she never investigates the kind of left-wing North London conspiracy theories that pass the dinner party test. Like, like ones where you'll have Otto English or someone, or what's her name? The one that lost in that court case to Aaron Banks.
Carol Cadwalla.
Carol Cadwalla. Canit Carol, yes.
Oh yeah, right.
You've got people like her saying that there was all dark Russian money and influence behind Brexit and Trump and stuff like that. That is legitimately that is the definition of conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yet you don't have Mariana or James O'Brien or any of those other mirthless toads looking into that.
No, you don't.
And that's because Carol had the right politics. It's as simple as that. And remember, also, when we're talking about Carol, she is the woman behind and in control of Independent Sage. She is the definition of fake news.
Yeah.
And yet, everything she does, like you said, James, it gets.
Was she involved with Independent Stage?
She wasn't just involved in it; she created it and she
Really?
runs it.
I didn't know that actually.
There you go.
Oh.
You learn something new every day.
It doesn't surprise me, but I didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And while on the point of dodgy politics, then what about Burisma's chief accountant being found dead?
It's very convenient for Joe and Hunter, isn't it?
Yeah, because where was the 5 million bribes supposed to have come from? Burisma.
No.
We know it's supposed to have come from Burisma. And yet now the CEO, who was her husband, was found dead a couple of months ago, and now she's been found dead, the chief accountant. So there's a conspiracy theory in the making right there. But nobody's picking up on it. Nobody's talking about it. But it's a bit strange, It's a bit like the old Clinton body count style thing, isn't it?
But that's a conspiracy theory too, and absolutely not true. I know.
No, you're 100% right, Ben, because 53 deaths all linked to Hillary and Bill Clinton has absolutely no bearing,
Coincidence, John.
no bearing on anything at all. As you say, it is complete and utter coincidence. I can't think. And what about those emails? What about them?
Mm-hmm.
But wasn't there, after Epstein obviously killed himself?
Clearly.
Yeah, let's not suggest otherwise, please. This is going out on YouTube.
Yeah.
But wasn't like 6 months later, wasn't there a close friend of Epstein's who was also jailed, and he died, unless I've got this wrong, in almost exactly the same circumstances where the camera went off for 5 minutes and then he hung himself.
I mean, it's absolutely not a conspiracy, though.
No, of course it's not. I would not suggest it's at all. And in fact, you know, I was I would have wanted Hillary for president as well, just to be clear.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Absolutely, because you know we're not suicidal, none of us.
Although we will be avoiding travelling in small aircraft and hot tubs for the foreseeable future.
Yes, yes, I think that's a good idea. Just yeah, no. But these things are conspiracies in the making, or could be conspiracies in the making. But like you said, James, Mariana's not going to investigate any of those.
No, of course
not. Of course, she's not.
I know someone who whose son went to school with Mariana, and he said that she was the dullest the dullest girl in class. And so when you
she's got 3 big screens and a tick now. Verify,
yeah, but she
James.
didn't even do journalism at school, did she? When she went to uni, it was
uni. No,
it was something else. What was it? I don't know. Was it history or languages or
would it have
something?
been history or
Languages.
something?
Oh, I think it might have been languages because I think she speaks Russian.
Right.
I think she actually speaks Russian. Maybe she is a Russian plant.
Well,
because she spent a year in Russia.
Well,
Did you know that?
I think it was the Grey Zone did some freedom of information stuff, and found that the MI5 and the security services, when stories needed to be planted or people needed to be spoken about favorably or unfavorably, they were actually suggesting BBC's Mariana Spring by name. So, you know, I think she's probably got some connections with the security services that she needs to disclose, I would say. But she's obviously a propagandist. That is her entire job. That is in her entire role. I mean, she wanted to create with BBC Verify, which has kind of disappeared now already, but she wanted to create the British Ministry of Truth. That is what she was essentially put in place for. That's what that service is. And just because you say we're the BBC and we're going to verify this, you know, it doesn't make it true.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, even Mark Zuckerberg's come out and said, you know, fact checking is actually just somebody's opinion. and it is. It is.
And it's like,
sorry.
Yeah, there's so many women like Mariana, always upper middle class white women with blonde hair or dyed blonde hair anyway, and they have this kind of middle class moral panic about misinformation now, and I think it's just because they don't. There's this book that was written in 1991, I think, called "The Intellectuals and the Masses," about early 20th century writers, poets, and artists who were terrified about the fact about the printing press because it allowed all the proles to be able to read, and they didn't want them to invade in their domain, which they thought was exclusive, you know. And so I think that's the same thing with all these middle class women who get into moral panic about the misinformation because they don't like the fact that the proletariat might have ideas that have not been given to them by people like Mariana and stuff.
Ideals above the station. Anyway, speaking of ideals above the station, bye Twitter.
Oh yeah, bye Twitter. If you want to continue watching this show, those of you who are watching live on Twitter, get over to YouTube. Come on, you've had your little preview, you've had your taste. Now come watch the whole thing.
Bye.
Bye. We switch off Twitter partway through the show unceremoniously so that they can't watch it anymore. They have to come and watch it over here.
I didn't even know we were on Twitter. Christ. Okay.
Because
we're live on my Twitter account.
Yeah, Twitter don't pay us. So
yeah, Twitter. I mean, YouTube don't pay us. Let's face it. But
yeah, well, nobody pays. No, let's face it. Nobody pays us. See that thing down the bottom, James? It says support us at kofi.com/chasing descent. See if people actually do that while we're live on the show. A siren will go off, and their message will be read out to the world
by a computer voice.
Yeah,
it's quite terrifying because they could say anything, and we've got no control over what they say, and they could literally donate money to us, and then it goes off and speaks over. We don't hear it. Me and you wouldn't hear it, but John would.
Yeah, I would hear it.
But it's quite terrifying, and it's there. So yeah, if you want to do that and embarrass us, feel free. I
Although
don't care.
actually, if it
I've
does
got 4
go
holes
off,
in my stomach, I can't be any more embarrassed.
so anyway,
Milking it,
right?
John. Milking it.
Yeah, you're milking it. Yeah, bloody hell. Right. What about Theresa May? So she was trending today for a brief time. People saying she should resign.
Cheers, Theresa.
Why
But
should she
I don't think
resign?
the most outrageous. Well, look, I don't think the most outrageous thing she's done now is running through the poppy fields. I think she's topped that.
Yeah, yeah. She went to that party with Jenkins, didn't she? Or Jenkins.
She went to a lockdown drinks party, didn't she?
Yeah, yeah, she did. Especially after saying that people shouldn't. Well, basically, she said people shouldn't, and she did.
I believe actually Theresa May was one of the people that voted against the lockdowns. Tell me if I'm wrong.
She did come out with some kind of intervention in Parliament to say that lockdown measures were harming small businesses and the children's schools and stuff. To be fair to her, yeah,
she was right.
But yeah, she was absolutely right about that. But if she was Prime Minister, though, would she have said the same? I don't know. It's easy to say as a backbencher.
Yeah,
exactly.
See, that was yeah. That's the point. That is the point.
But
also,
carry on, James. Sorry.
No. I was just going to say that in Parliament she gave some sort of speech supporting. Sorry, I really don't follow politics much these days anymore. But speech against who's that woman that Sue Gray.
Oh yeah.
So she gave some sort of ghastly speech saying that it was wrong for Boris Johnson to accuse. Harriet Harman actually, it wasn't Sue Gray. Harriet Harman of being prejudiced against the judgment or whatever. And so, it's quite delicious to see Theresa May in trouble now for having been in a lockdown party.
Well, I personally have always advocated, even for all of it, people going and doing what the hell they wanted. So I can't say that she did anything wrong, personally speaking. I don't think any of these parties were people doing anything wrong.
I don't think she did anything wrong, but then she shouldn't say that that this committee thing that was held against Boris Johnson wasn't
exactly.
It wasn't biased against him when it clearly was. I mean, Harriet bloody Harman.
Of course it was. Yeah, of course it was. You know, at the end of the day, I can despise Boris Johnson, and I do despise Boris Johnson, and it's not for the reasons that other people might despise him. Other people, I mean, the mood of the country is that they despise him because he went to these parties, and I think that's misplaced. I think that they should be despising him because he obviously knew it was fine to have these parties instead of,
yeah,
you know, but that's the mainstream media.
These people that are angry at him for having the parties when they apparently, were going under the rules and everything like that. Actually, they are angry because they know that he knew that it wasn't anything serious enough not to, and they don't like the fact that we were taken for mugs. So they're still pretending that it was dangerous, and that's why they're because towards him, but it's not okay. Yeah,
because if they actually come out and said, "Well, we knew he was taking us for mugs," then they've got to admit that they were duped, and nobody likes to think they were duped.
I mean, I will say that the duping ran deep, and I'll give you some examples of that.
The pig ran.
We were in tier 4, weren't we, over Christmas, James? You in London, me in the southeast, right?
I wasn't in London then. No. When's this? A year ago or so?
When they were doing the tiers, so probably about a year and a half, 2 years.
So then I was in Derbyshire, but yeah.
But so whilst everyone thought that they couldn't do anything, they were like, "Oh my God, you can't do this, you can't do that." I got in my car, drove to Eurotunnel, drove to France. You could do what you wanted. It was just the illusion of not being able to do what you wanted, because nobody stopped me leaving the country. Even with the passports required to travel internationally, I drove up to Eurotunnel, fully expecting to be turned around, and they went, "Have you had your double?" And I just went, "Yeah." And they went, "Enjoy your holiday." And off I drove. Right? That was the level of checking that they were doing. The passenger locator forms. I went abroad 3 times when you were meant to fill out a locator and isolate for 2 weeks. Never filled one out. Never once filled one out. Was never once asked for one by the Border Force. Was never, like I say, the duping ran deep. You were conditioned to believe you had to do these things, when realistically you didn't. You didn't have to do any of it.
Yeah. I mean, I had quite a few illicit parties, and they were far more fun than the ones that happened in Downing Street.
I was actually, I was thinking, what kind of party invites Theresa May there? I mean, having said that, maybe she's a right goer once she gets a couple of G&Ts on her, you know?
Proper deviant. Gets the whips, the chains, and the leather out. But Theresa, that's a bit much.
Maybe she's got one of those spanking paddles, James.
I could actually imagine it though, because she was a vicar's daughter. And if you're brought up in that environment, then you want to rebel when you grow when you're an adult. So,
that's true. Yeah, that's true.
I don't want that into my head, actually, Theresa May with a spanking paddle. Can we please move on?
Right, let's move on. Let's move on to Nicola Bulley, who unfortunately did die in that river. And the coroner has come out with a number of determinations. One, that she was alive when she went in the river. There was no evidence to suggest that any foul play had taken part.
Yep.
She drowned, and she remained in the river until she was found. Okay. So
these are the post-mortem results, and she was identified via dental records.
Yeah. So there are a number of issues that need to be addressed, not least as what about the divers who said she's not in that river, because if she's in that river, we'd have found her. Remember?
Mm.
So they didn't do a very good job. Secondly, what about all those people that said, "Oh, the dog would have jumped in after her," and I was a pretty lone voice saying, "There's no way my dog would jump in a river after anyone, even me," you know. So, and I've actually seen quite a few videos over the last couple of days of dogs not chasing people into swimming pools and things. Yeah, they try and save them by grabbing their hair and pull them out the pool, but they don't actually go into the swimming pool. There's not many dogs will jump into a river after someone. There's quite the other question is, she wasn't drunk. She didn't have that much. She didn't have any alcohol in her bloodstream, so she wasn't drunk. So it's either an accident, tragically, or it's maybe she took her own life.
Yeah, and no matter what people say, those are the results of the post-mortem. So that's all we have to go on. So there's nothing really more I can say. Yeah,
basically that's it.
I mean, what do you think to the whole Nicola Bulley thing, James?
Well, again, we can only go on the facts that we have, as you say. I mean, I don't know what the current was like in that stream. It seems a bit hard to believe that she just slipped and couldn't get out. I've no idea. No idea what the kind of environment was in that stream. I've no idea.
Well, it would be pretty cold because it was the middle of winter, wasn't it? So if you think, if you think the water temperature is probably in the region of between 2 and 4 degrees or something like that, it's not going to be very warm at all. It's not going to take long for you to have hypothermia. And once you go into if you go into the sea and it's like, 4 degrees or something, you're talking, you've only got like 20 minutes. So she doesn't need to be in the water long before she, and hypothermia would probably have set in before that, which would have mean she'd have become disorientated, she'd have become uncoordinated.
So if you go into sort of shock, then you can't swim at all.
Yeah,
so,
and it probably wouldn't take much to actually drown her, It's just unfortunate, I think. It's one of these things.
I do. I think it's unfortunate, and I think it blew up into a massive unnecessary circus. I don't think the police should have shared her personal mental health struggles or anything like that.
No.
I don't think it was their place to do so. And in the same breath, I also don't think commentators should have been making assertions that perhaps Nicola Bulley did not exist.
Oh, that's absolutely insane. But you've got this. The problem is, after lockdown, you now have these people who are on the so-called freedom fighters' side who have just completely lost the plot. Like now, I see that James Delingpole is saying that the what do they call it? Submersive, whatever they went to investigate.
Yeah.
Submersible. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's some sort of psyop distraction or something like that, and these people didn't. I have no idea what's happened.
Delingpole's saying that.
Seen that. Yeah, no.
Yes.
I've seen other people saying that as well, saying laughing at people who actually think there was a sub. It's like, why would we make that? Why would people make that up?
I mean, right, hold on. So, but that submarine's been operating for what, a couple of years or something. It's made multiple trips up and down, right? So it's probably worn out, and like we're finding out, the guy was playing fast and loose with health and safety, so he probably played fast and loose with his maintenance schedule as well. But
by that, he probably did none.
Yeah, well, yeah, but why would someone go and set up a company, make a submarine, and actually take trips up and down to the Titanic, and and let people see it, right? And then get on the sub himself. And
I know.
Allegedly, and I mean, it's we're back to the keep it simple,
Occam's razor, baby.
It's a big stretch, isn't it? I mean, it's just madness, and this is the theme of the show, isn't it? We collectively seem to be descending into some kind of collective madness, where people are coming out with the most absurd theories for things that just happen all the time anyway.
Well, it's like, because these people are saying and they're thinking, because there are some things that perhaps our government and media say to us that are blatantly untrue, and there are. Everything must be. Everything must be. And unfortunately, and I've said this before, like, the mainstream media are crap, and they are, but not everything they say is bollocks. Not everything they say is bollocks. They do a bit, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, really. But you've got to keep your sanity and your wits about you, because yes, there are things that are blatantly untrue that are being said to us and we can report on, but let's at least try and get some facts in place first before we start making assertions. And I've been seeing this, James. I've been seeing people say this, that there's no sub. It doesn't make any sense.
It's like some of these people think, if a musician's only as good as his last album, then these people think they're only as good as their last tweets, and they need to ratchet up the outlandishness ever more each time. And they think they're being really edgy by saying that everything's conspiracy, but actually they've been searingly dull because they've been so predictable. It's like if you listen to, not to go on about Delingpole, but if you listen to London Calling, then every time Toby tries to bring up some sort of topical thing that's in the news, James will say, "Oh, that's a distraction. Don't care. That's a distraction." It's like, well, what's the point of having the podcast then if you don't want to talk about anything?
So what are we being distracted from?
Well, when Toby tries to pin him on this stuff, James never comes up with answers, so I don't know.
It sounds like James has gone down a rabbit hole and got lost.
He does. It does. And it's unfortunate, because I used to think James Delingpole was fantastic.
Absolutely.
But yeah, some of the things I do see coming out of him these days, I just go, nope, and move on.
Yeah.
But it's a shame. It really is a shame, because
I've always thought Dick was more grounded.
Oh, he is. He's lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but the fact of the matter is that we are increasingly getting more bombastic, and like you said, John, falling into some form of collective madness. And I think it's been quite heavily driven by social media. It has. But what do we do? What do we do about it? All we can do is sit here and have conversations like this and try and snap people back to some kind of reality. And the reality is that, yes, there is a lot of crap coming out of the mainstream media. That's true. John, press the button.
As I said last week.
Sorry.
Wrong button.
Dare you?
Oh, sorry.
Wrong button.
That's true.
Right button. Right.
Fat fingers.
But also, some of these things, unfortunately, or fortunately, they are real. Like Nicola Bulley, I don't really think there's much conspiracy behind that. Now that we've seen the full coroner report and post-mortem, I think there's quite a lot behind the Madeleine McCann case, for example. I think there's a lot of smoke and there's a lot of fire there.
Actually, Madeleine McCann case, latest police search reveals no new clues.
Well, I have no idea why they went and searched that reservoir. I mean, when they
to be seen to be doing something.
When they said we'd recovered items such as a bra strap, I was like, she's a fucking toddler. Why would you have recovered a bra strap?
I know she was what? 6? No, 4.
No,
what age was she?
3 or 4.
Yeah.
She was 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Right? And then they go, well, we've recovered items such as a bra strap. I'm like,
look, we all have our understanding of what happened there, and I think let's just say I wouldn't vote for them as babysitters of the year. Okay.
No, I agree.
That's my view.
I agree, but like I say, in that sort of scenario, in that sort of situation, the facts don't line up to the narrative, and they don't.
Yeah.
So there's definitely smoke, and I imagine there's probably fire there as well. But with things like Nicola Bulley, it seems, as much as people don't want to hear me say it, it's cut and dry. It's open and closed. She went in the river, and she drowned. The submarine, it imploded. That happened. It was real. Nothing more I can say to that.
But don't you find, John and Ben, that when you try to say these, when you try to give a bit of common sense on Twitter or somewhere, how vicious these kind of fringe people can be?
Yeah. You're called a shill. You're called controlled opposition. You're called this, that, and the other. And these are by people who you've been sort of, and this is why me and John have never joined together or joined any groups or joined KBF or any of that.
Together's quite moderate, to be honest. They're not, they're not done these fringe conspiracy rabbit holes or anything like that.
But the reason we don't tie ourselves to a group is because these groups, they, as you say, they're quite moderate, but I'm imagining if you called them out on something that was wrong, they would close ranks. The same as most of these groups. And unfortunately, you've got to be able to sit here and call anybody wrong, even if you like them.
Absolutely. There was some absolutely insane fellow a few months back did some sort of long blog. I mean, it was like almost 20,000 words long on me.
Paul,
James.
by any chance?
Pardon?
Is the man's name Paul by any chance?
I'll have to see. But, it was about me.
He did one on me.
He did, really?
Yeah.
But perhaps this was the same one. It had people together in it, had Melville, had me, a photo of me where I was actually doing an Illuminati sign just to take the piss out of people.
It was Paul. It was Paul.
Okay, yeah.
See all these hand gestures, right? People do things when they're nervous. And they just they put their hands together and
they absolutely do.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's entirely natural.
I don't know. Right.
It just happens. It really does just happen sometimes. And there's no rhyme nor reason behind it. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. No.
That's us demonetized.
But no.
It might give you a big donor or sponsor.
You never know.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about, and the stuff that So I'll give you a little rundown on the guy. I had to involve the police with him, and so did several others because he tweeted about me 3,000 times in a 24-hour period.
What?
1,000 times, and I've got them all, right?
Yes.
He harassed me to no end, and he actually said in some of the tweets that his intention was to try and make me kill myself. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He was arrested and he had all his devices seized. But he's back. He's back on Twitter and he's doing it again. Fortunately, I guess he mostly leaves me alone now. And after this, he'll probably go for me again. But you know what? I don't care because I'll fucking block him.
Oh,
right?
goodness me. Yeah, yeah.
But he also did it to a bunch of women as well, and he did it. I believe I know the blog you're talking about. Where he did it to you, and he did it to others, and he makes these really crap compilations of pictures.
Yes,
and,
yes.
Yep. And then ironically, he calls his blog Pure Truth, and it's just pure bile. It's just made up out of the blue shit. It's like, who the hell is controlling me?
Do you not think there's an awful lot of people on Twitter just they just seem to go on for a fight, you know, it's not just Twitter, it's any social media platform, and they have no regard for people at all when it comes to social media, because I don't think they treat them as real people. And they say the most vile and stupid things without even thinking about it, without thinking that there's someone at the other end of that, you know, the keyboard or the other end of the screen reading it.
I mean, I was obviously thinking that with me because he said he wanted to make me kill myself.
Yeah, okay, but you know.
But more generally, I know what you're talking about, and I think the best way to deal with these people, or the most entertaining way to deal with them, is to have a sort of 3-tweet argument with them, and then just say, "Oh, sorry, yes, I think you're completely right."
Yeah,
and then they'll say, "What do you mean I'm right? I'm not done with you yet." You know.
Yeah, I usually send them that gif of John Candy going, "Sure."
Yeah.
You're right.
No.
Yeah, I've
the
taken
attention of the people they target.
Yeah, I've taken that as my stance these days. I just got up.
Yeah,
100%. I'm sorry. You're right. And apart from that one woman who was getting into me about something, and then I realised that she was Canadian, and I says, look, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. If I'd known you were Canadian, I'd never have started this conversation. And she never came back to me after that. So,
moving on to our next news story, John.
Yes, moving on.
Canadians, people from Liverpool.
Right.
The Scottish for the most part, even though he's one of them.
Yeah, the Scottish are just sheep. So we are moving on. Where are we? Sweden. Let's go to Sweden.
We like Sweden.
Yeah, so the land of Greta.
How dare you?
How dare you?
Has decided that renewables aren't going to work for it. So
because they won't work for any country, John.
Yeah, well, there's another story about renewables that we can go into after this. But so Sweden has decided that renewables aren't going to work for it, and they're going to go with nuclear power because they still don't want to use fossil fuel, but they think nuclear is a good choice. And you know what? I kind of think they're right. Yeah, I think they're right.
I agree. I think nuclear power is the best option for everybody.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah. I don't see any reason why not. So
I've got nothing much more to say to that, John.
No, I think it's sensible, and it also goes on the back of Siemens, the large German company, have just taken a 33% hit on their shares, as they have revealed, against all odds, that it appears that wind turbines don't work as well as they should, need more maintenance than you would think, and aren't very reliable. And they're not lasting as long as they hoped. So it appears that renewables aren't going to do it. Are you all right, Ben?
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with you?
Just talk between yourselves a second.
Oh no!
I'm
not talking.
Well, there was some sort of solar panel farm or something the other day that stopped working because the sun was actually too hot.
Well, I don't think it didn't actually, and let's be fair here, right? It didn't quite stop working. There was a number of reasons why they had to fire up the coal-fired power station to augment the national grid. And one of the reasons was that there was a big demand on the grid because it was so hot. There was a big demand from those people that could actually afford air conditioners. But the other thing is, as the heat goes up, the solar power
stops working.
Yeah.
And I'm just
Or
going to say
it becomes less and less efficient.
I'm going to say it as plainly as possible. Wind turbines are shit. They are. They're absolute shit. You're never going to power your country with a wind farm. You're not. Like you say, John, solar is shit. Sea power or hydroelectric power is just not something countries are willing to invest in. It's probably better than the other two if you can get it working correctly. But at the end of the day, the best option, and the best option that should satisfy the green loonies as well, is nuclear. Because despite the fact there are risks involved with everything. And it is the best option. It is the best option. And we should be investing more and more in it because, hey, it's cheap.
Why is it that all these misanthropic greenies that seem to think that we are that humans are a scourge on the earth and that we're ruining the natural habitat or whatever of animals? Why is it that they are pro the wind farms when so many birds are killed by them?
It's a good question, that. It's a good question. Because being green and being one of these green protesters usually, not always, but usually goes hand in hand with veganism. And sure, if you're a vegan, you don't want animals to be killed, and yet you want to put up things that are going to cause the death of many, many, many animals. Interesting and weird, but you're not taking my steak. You're not taking my steak. I'll die on that hill. Next news story. Poland is apparently building. Don't put that on screen. No, you didn't see anything. Poland is apparently building a Abrams service center for the tanks that won't exist by the time they get to it. See, and this is the thing that I don't understand. Who the hell thought it was a good idea to put a gas turbine engine in a tank? Right? Well, Yeah, the Americans. Because it goes fast, but it gets about a mile to the gallon, right? Yep. It produces a massive heat signature. It's fairly lightly armored around its most vulnerable part, which is the engine. It's very unreliable compared to a diesel tank, and really these things break down all the time. So why? I can understand if ever a tank needed a service centre, it is the Abrams, but the Abrams was designed for a particular purpose. It was designed to be fast so that it could reverse quickly out the way of the advancing Russians, and it was just there to bog down in front of them, knock a few out, and then reverse to the next position, because all it was designed to do was slow down the advance of the Russians as they rolled over Europe, the Red Storm Rising type scenario. That's what it was designed for, the Cold War type massive tank battle that they saw across Europe, which never happened, thank God. So, throwing it into a situation now where it's being used in wooded areas and urban fighting, that's not what it's designed to do. It's not designed to do that. It's the wrong tank for the job. And again, America's just getting rid of their crap. And all the other, that's exactly what it is.
And the other countries are doing the same. Like Germany sent their old Leopards. France sent their old wheeled tanks that they didn't want, because they were getting nice new ones from Belgium. Finland said you can have all our F-16s once they've gone by their sell-by date. Or was it Holland? I said you can have our F-16s after they've gone past the sell-by date. So the whole thing's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I personally don't think that with the current situation and the state of affairs on the ground over there, any Abrams tanks will make it for service. That's just my personal opinion.
No,
I just don't think that they'll be in existence. I mean, the only way they're going to get to that service center is if they're delivered to Poland, and then they're serviced first, and then they're sent out. That's going to be it.
Yeah.
But I just want to address the chat, which we don't do so much anymore. But no, it is not pre-recorded. And I was also asked how was hospital. Is everything okay? Yep.
Oh God! Don't ask him. He's just milk it.
John.
What?
John, I was in surgery just over 48 hours ago, John.
Oh, for God's sake! Yeah, okay.
I was in surgery, John.
Shut up.
I was knocked out. I had a tube down my throat.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm all right. I just keep getting some waves of pain otherwise, but now I'm pretty fine. I mean, I made sure I was discharged by 10 o'clock the next morning, and I've come home and I'm recovering at home, and the kids are annoying, and I wondered should I have stayed in hospital, but for that reason and that reason alone. But yeah, no, I'm okay. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. Simple as that.
So moving on, Hikvision has been hacked apparently. So this is the Chinese company that makes all these security cameras. So apparently all these Chinese security camera things are a bit dodgy. Really? You think so? What was it? Huawei? Remember Huawei? We're putting up listening posts next to American military bases all over America.
Yep. Huawei phones have more backdoors than the Chinese sweatshop.
Yeah. So the Hikvision Chinese surveillance cameras have been hacked, and you can get in and take over them. And then, of course, there's the other surveillance cameras that the UK use a lot, which are run by Israel. I'm pretty sure there's a few backdoors in there. I think Checkpoint's involved in them.
I imagine.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I'm going to say something, and this might be completely, stunning to people here. I applaud anybody who hacks mass surveillance systems. If you have hacked into a mass surveillance system, make sure you permanently deactivate it, please.
So the BBC have brought the Hikvision thing out, and they made some kind of stupid video about it. The guys hacked into the thing. What was that?
What the fuck
Sorry.
was that?
Sorry, that was my laptop.
So what did you do to it?
Scared the living shit out of me.
So anyway, so the BBC have the Hikvision camera, which is carefully placed above someone's laptop, so as they can see the screen as the guy types his password into it and says, now the hackers have the password to the man's computer as well. So now they'll be able to go in and get all our BBC secrets. What a load of nonsense. They really are a bunch of fear-mongering toads. They really are.
That's the mainstream media for you now.
Yeah.
I say now. They've kind of always thrived on fear, haven't they? Ever since they started the 24-hour news cycle. The rolling news cycle.
It sells, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I mean, with a rolling news cycle, with 24-hour news being constantly fed to people, you have to keep them interested. And the way you keep them interested is, unfortunately, they have discovered and found over the years through fear. It is fear. Fear keeps people coming back. It keeps people clicking. It keeps people wanting to know. My grandmother was a prime example, right? During the first lockdown here, even when she was breaking lockdown and coming round ours, which she did most days, she would still say, I need to watch the news at 6 to see the numbers, because it had been pushed into her. It had been programmed into her. She's a 70-plus-year-old woman, and she was scared. So she said, I need to watch that particular thing to get those particular numbers. Even though I was trying to explain to her, read the small print, within 28 days of a positive test, whatever. But it's fear, and it keeps the clicks, the views, and people coming back. It's as simple as that.
I remember even when it was before the 2019 election, but it was when Boris Johnson was leader of the Tory party. And he said something as innocuous in Parliament as, what was it, humbug or something. And then, my God, for the next 2 weeks, you had BBC political panel shows with kind of moralizing middle-class women with their pained faces of concern. Kind of sorry, this
The Marianas of yesteryear.
Yeah. Basically trying to suggest that by saying humbug, is Boris Johnson not setting a dangerous precedent for political discourse? And they even invoked the death of Joe Cox, for Christ's sake. Sorry about that.
Hello,
That's
kitty.
bizarre. Yeah, I mean,
let's face it, the death of Joe Cox, whilst unfortunate and tragic, was politicised to hell, wasn't it? And especially by the mainstream media. And they started saying, look, here's the rise of the far right, the rise of the far right.
Yeah. You never ever... Sorry, but you also never hear anyone really invoke the death of David Amos, though.
No, of course not. Of course not. And I mean, I've been to his little memorial that he's got. I've seen that, but you're absolutely right, because the ideology behind the person that did that is not. How do I put this? It's not PC to talk about it. Okay.
No. Yes.
Whereas because the man that unfortunately murdered Joe Cox may have subscribed to what the BBC coined far right views, that's the bad, far right, the bad. And in fact, I will go one further. Because I see the term just right wing being used as a slur. It's as if they're trying.
It's a lazy pejorative, yeah.
Yeah, and it's obvious to me that the mainstream media, and I will include Fox News in this nowadays, have a left-wing bias, and they want to paint an other, they want to create a bad, and it will be anyone or anything that they can call right-wing. Doesn't have to be right-wing. Right? I'm not right-wing. Well, I don't think I am. I don't think I've ever been right-wing. But at the end of the day, I would be called it. I have been called it. And it's because if you use that term and you use that slur, which is what it's being used as, the pejorative, it's the bad. And it just falls back into the media wanting to create narratives and wanting to create fear and wanting to create sensationalism. It's like we're repeatedly told that the rise of the far right is the most dangerous thing in the country. Is it? Is it, though? I mean, I don't go round the corner and see far right nationalist rallies going on. I don't think I've ever seen one.
But also, I think that most people in most places are socially right-wing anyway. I mean, to be left-wing would be to be eccentric. To be left-wing would be to be something remarkable and strange. Most people aren't socially left-wing.
Yeah.
But despite that fact, as you say, it is used as a lazy pejorative.
Yeah, and it gets used as it's a way to paint people as the bad.
Well, I've never had a problem with being bad. I've always preferred the villains to the heroes. They always have so much more fun.
See, I used to think that, well, I've always thought of myself as at least centre-left, right? But I always thought of us as like I say, when I was a teenager, we were the anti-establishment. We were the cool. We were the punks. Whereas the right wings were the one in the U.S. Congress going, video games are causing violence, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
Right. And somehow, in what, say the last 15 years, there's been one hell of a switch. So I don't know.
The left that are behaving like Mary Whitehouse these days, saying that we can't even read some of the passages in P.G. Woodhouse's books, for Christ's sake. Roald Dahl's books.
Well, look at Amazon. Amazon reviews. Some guy got his review rejected because it failed to meet their community guidelines. Because he reviewed a book that had been sent to him and said, unfortunately, the book was bent because the postman had folded it in half to put it through the letterbox. And that was rejected because you're not allowed to use the word bent.
It was seen as a homosexual slur.
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
Yep. Yeah. Well, yeah, and you know what else Amazon did? You know the one where right. So guy gets a delivery from Amazon, right? Driver
Yeah.
goes up to the door, guy's not in.
Oh,
Rings the doorbell. It's not.
this is a couple of weeks
It's
ago.
not a Ring doorbell. Yeah, it's a couple of weeks ago. It's a Nexus or something like that, right? And the doorbell automatically says or says something like, "Can I help you?" Delivery driver takes it as a racist slur and reports him to Amazon. Amazon suspends his account. Guy can do
Shut down his home
nothing.
systems.
Well, no, right. So, and this is it's his own fault because he ran his house basically using Alexa. So he had everything
Turning
tied
lights
into
on
Alexa, doors, lights, everything, right? And basically, when Amazon suspended his account, he couldn't even turn the lights on. Well, he could have. He could have. Let's be sensible, because what he could have done is unplug the home control thing and then just plug the light into the socket. So the guy was being an arse as well, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's always a way of making things work. You cannot run your home completely automatically.
No.
Or if you do, you can always revert back. This guy's just he's put egg on it for the news.
But did I get that right? Because Alexa or whatever said to the black delivery man, "Can I help you?"
Yes,
that was taken as a racial slur.
Well, he misconstrued it and said he heard the N-word coming out of
Yeah.
the house. A house with nobody in it.
There was nobody in the
Oh, I
house.
see.
It was an automated response from the doorbell. So I very much doubt that the doorbell is saying, "Beat it," you know.
So basically, either he misconstrued it or he simply made it up.
Or he made it up.
Either way, Amazon acted on the word of this person with
Yeah.
absolutely no evidence and
Yeah.
shut down his
But
Amazon
then-
home systems.
But then Amazon goes further and suspends Lewis Rosenbaum's account for calling it out on his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Do you know this guy? No.
No,
This is a guy
No.
it's a guy in New York that used to fix Apple things. He'd fixed Apple computers
I
and
know
all
who he
that,
is.
right? And so
Exactly
Amazon,
who he is,
so
yeah.
Amazon banned his Amazon account for calling this out on his YouTube channel. So, you know,
Well done, Amazon. Well done.
Great job.
But this sort of ties into the story coming out of Australia, doesn't it? And the creation of a Ministry of Truth. And the reason I say that is because a Ministry of Truth doesn't just pertain to facts; it also pertains to behaviour. And John, tell us more about that.
right. So the Australians are putting through a bill at the moment, which is effectively trying to do what New Zealand's doing, what Scotland's doing, what the UK's trying to do. You know, we're trying to control what people can and can't say and what they can and can't watch. And you know, it's BBC verified. It's BBC verified by government effectively. So you will follow the official narrative, and if you step off it, then repercussions may occur.
Yeah. The idea is terrifying. It's terrifying because, and the people that support it is my message. Because it's being done by a government you like, you agree with, does not mean that that government that you like and agree with remain in power. And then these powers that you love and agree with to control your speech, your thought, and your watching, viewing, may be turned on you. So just remember, just because you like the people in power doing this, doesn't mean it's going to work in your favour. And also, just remember, you know, this is the message when it comes to communism, which is, I would say, heavily ties into things like this. Loudest people screaming for such a thing are always the first against the wall. Just remember.
Yeah.
It's also like people on the left. On the one hand, they say to educate ourselves by reading books. On the other, they remove the tools necessary to do so, either answering the books or the speech or whatever.
Yeah.
And so much of left-wing activism is now just a rat race to ignorance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the dumbing down of the population, isn't it? You're not allowed to think for yourself. You know,
need to watch the movie Idiocracy.
Yeah. Or Demolition Man. very similar. isn't
Apparently,
it?
the volume for both me and James is choppy.
Well, what do you want me to do?
So it's there'll be OBS doing that.
Nope. Drop frames at 0. CPU 1.3%.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just saying we're on the same track, both our audio.
Well, the last time that happened, right?
I just did that.
You left the meeting and came back.
No, I unplugged the mic.
Oh, you unplugged your mic, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Then we're all in this. What do you want me to do if your audio is choppy?
Idea. We try switching our audio track off and on again.
Choppy to me.
It's not choppy to me either, but it will be because it's through.
Oh, I see.
It puts it out. So just duck and duck, and then hopefully it should be fine. Tell me when you've done that, and then we'll just continue as normal.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll turn off Twitch.
All right, turn off Twitch. Say bye, Twitch. Right, but anyway.
Right,
yes.
how do you want me to turn the audio on and off? Wait,
So
in the
you can
middle of a
literally
stream?
Turn it off. Just turn our audio off.
How?
And then turn it back on.
How?
There's a little toggle switch.
What? There's only a mute button.
We'll do that. Mute it, then unmute it. See if that makes a damn difference.
Why would it?
Sorry about this, people. Fucking OBS.
Right, is everybody saying it's choppy?
Yes, lots of people.
Where?
Yeah.
In the chat.
Right, so I'm fine, and you guys aren't.
Mm-hmm. So it can't be our end, because we're on the same audio track.
Oh, it could be Ring Central.
Have we sorted now? Did you mute it and unmute it?
No, I haven't done anything. All I've done is kill Twitch.
Apparently it's... All right, well, okay, fine. Let's just continue. Anyway, yeah, Australia, scary. No. Stop it. Honestly speaking, it needs to stop. Because we are going to end up at a point where we are in the movie Idiocracy. You need to watch that movie. Go and watch that movie. And that's going to be us if we continue to let these people, who we elect to represent us, by the way, not control us, represent us. If we let these people constrain essentially what we're allowed to think. And what they're going to do, they're going to rewrite history.
Well,
and something tells me they probably will.
Yeah, of course they will, because they do that all the time.
But the problem is, there's so many people in this country that do think that it is the government's job to almost parent them in everything regarding their lives. Like there was Question Time a few weeks ago. Christ knows why I was watching it. But someone said to someone in the audience, you do know that the government can't do everything for you, don't you? It was almost like they were telling a child that Santa Claus doesn't exist.
Well, actually,
job is simple.
Actually, they shouldn't even have said that. What they should have said was, you do realise that the government shouldn't be doing anything for you, really. You know, the government should be doing as little as possible, because you should be running your own life, because you're a big boy or girl and you have to wear the big boy or girl pants.
Yeah.
You know? And this is what's wrong.
Right.
Nanny state's gone mad. And this is what's up with Scotland, because, and you look at Nicola Sturgeon, who always talked down to people when she was doing her speeches. She was telling them exactly what they were supposed to do, and they lapped it up because they just want to be told what to do. They don't want to have to think. They just have to then go, oh, Nicola's sorted that for us. Oh, Boris has done this for us.
Let me tell you something, and this is absolutely true. Okay? If for the past 3 years, Western populations, because this phenomenon of mass formation psychosis really only affected Western nations, let's face it. But if they had turned around and said to their governments, hold on, you're going a bit too far here, none of this would be happening right now. It is the fact that people gave them blind compliance that has emboldened them to create these so-called Ministry of Truths, to say, you know, people standing up in the United Nations and saying, we have to be or create a single source of truth. I mean, that's terrifying. There is no such thing as a single source of truth. And if anybody is purporting to be that, it's because they want to control you.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, how do you know something's true if you can't compare it against what's wrong?
Exactly. So what are they going to do? Are they going to say that conversations like the three of us are having right now are illegal, essentially?
Probably.
That's where we're going to be going.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, I don't know about you, James. I don't know about you, but I think that life's not worth living if you can't, you know, think for yourself.
Yeah, I've never been that much political, but what I have always had is an inveterate disgust towards those who presume to tell me what I can and can't say or can and can't do. And I always will do.
I mean, I've never been political up until we started doing this and I started pushing back. All right, what I did before this was I made little videos at theme parks showing disability access. Right? I was never political. But I think we've been pushed into a position now where we have to use any voice or anything that we have in order to try and call this stuff out. Because if we don't, what's going to be left? I mean, I've got children. I've got children. What's going to be left for my children?
No, completely.
Yeah. I've just realised my wedding ring's still not on for my operation.
Moving on, Rose McGowan is suing Black Cube.
First of all, Rose McGowan is one of those leaders of the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. She's not. Who's Black Cube then? I've no idea.
Well, so Black Cube are an Israeli company that she claims has intimidated her and made her do things that she wouldn't normally have done.
In regards to what?
Well, until her movie career and stuff like that, you know, TV career or whatever. So, so she's suing them, but it does seem to me that if you have the word black in your corporation name, you may be working for an evil organization.
BlackRock, Blackstone, yeah,
Blackwater, Black Cube.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of, I mean, and while this may well be a conspiracy theory, it's a kind of obvious one, isn't it? It's like they're spelling it out. If we'll put black in the name because that's the way our hearts are.
You know what? I'm convinced.
Actually, can I speak about them?
Yeah.
Something in kind of related to that with the Me Too stuff. It's like, well, first of all, Rose McGowan, you know, and all those girls when who were surrounded themselves, who Harvey Weinstein was surrounded by, they knew what they were doing. They knew that they were Arabists and ruthlessly ambitious, and you know, it was their choice to have sex with him to advance their careers.
Yeah.
And I've almost been thinking, I don't want to. Well, the facts just aren't there, but I've also been thinking something similar in relation to the Philip Schofield scandal thing. I mean, the boy was like 20 years old or whatever when it happened. Yeah. I know they met at school, but everyone keeps on talking about the balance of power between him and Philip Schofield because
the power imbalance thing is bollocks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. Well, but there could have been a different imbalance of power. You know, as Plato said, beauty is the natural superiority. Now, this the Daily Mail reported that this 20-year-old kept on trying to initiate the meetings with Philip.
Yeah,
and you know, it could, and you know, young gay people, they're not all just innocent little lambs. They can be viciously ambitious. So it could,
and that relates not just to young gay people, but to young people in general.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So it could be that he did kind of try and seduce Philip in order to advance his career. I don't know. Or it could be that Philip was grooming him. I don't know. But it's just something that no one seems to want to even entertain.
And this is why I think, like on this show, we've spoken about the Philip Schofield scandal, but we haven't gone so far as to call him a groomer because the facts aren't there. Okay,
Not yet. No.
and there's people, trying to suggest that they were sleeping together when the boy was underage. Nobody knows that. Nobody knows that. So we're not going to turn around and say it. It's at this time of broadcast, it's not true.
You know what? The whole Philip Schofield thing, I have no interest in the sexual part of it, right?
No, I don't.
The thing that I think he had to go was because he lied to not only his colleagues and his company, he lied to the public. And that's why he no longer had any credibility, because he was a proven liar.
Remember, he was on this morning for 20 years, trying to paint himself as some kind of not just voice of reason, but voice of fact, voice of sanity. Yeah. And if he's going to sit there and lie, like John said, his credibility's absolutely destroyed. Now, I just want to move.
And also trying to create this wholesome image, and cheating on your wife with a 20-year-old boy is far from wholesome.
Yeah,
I just want to move back
and
quickly.
To be fair, I don't think it was the first episode.
I highly doubt it, right? But I want to move back quickly to this idea of power imbalance, because this is born out of quote-unquote woke ideology, okay? This is the idea that just because somebody is more powerful than you, therefore they are some kind of perpetrator. I honestly don't think that's true. I think it is a way to excuse your own behavior sometimes. And personally thinking, speaking, I know a woman, for example, who was a manager at a very, 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 very big entertainment brand here in the United Kingdom. She's a manager. And she started an illicit relationship with one of her male underlings. And she even said to me that was a power imbalance. I said, no, it's not. I said, it's two people who have fallen for one another, because they weren't actually allowed to have that relationship within the company. And I said, no, it's two people that have fallen for one another, and it doesn't matter what your job titles are. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think it is as simple as that. I don't think she said that, because I was his manager, I was able to instigate more meetings with him and stuff like that. I said, it doesn't matter. Obviously what's happening between you is something you both wanted, surely, or it wouldn't be happening.
Well, maybe aye, maybe no. Maybe one side felt pressured.
They live together.
Yeah, now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that it started off innocently.
But I don't think that the power imbalance is a factor.
I think it can be. I think it very much can be in a number of relationships.
It can be, yes. Yeah. Sure, it can be, yeah. Sorry about that again. Sorry. Oh, God.
Okay, so even if I was to go with it can be, I don't think in most cases where it's used as an excuse it is. I think it's being used as an excuse for the most part. I really do.
I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. I think there's a lot of this. I mean, like the Weinstein thing and all that. That's a complete power imbalance, isn't it? The casting couch,
yes.
The Hollywood casting couch, which exists.
Yes.
But
like I said, I don't know, to be honest.
No, it can be. It's not always cute.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's not everything is a power imbalance, but I think it very much exists, and it still very much exists in this day and age, and I think it's always existed.
I mean, I'll give you an example. You see someone like Bernie Ecclestone, who, let's face it, looked like a walking testicle with how wrinkled. With nice, beautiful women on his side. And now you could call that a power imbalance, but at the same time, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, but yes, okay.
Yeah,
I'm not calling that a power imbalance. That's a mutual exchange, right?
Yeah, but
that's not a power imbalance. That's a mutual exchange. So she's getting something and he's getting something. No, I haven't nailed your point. I haven't nailed your point at all. Your point.
Harvey Weinstein.
Right.
Harvey Weinstein's girls knew what they were doing there.
Yes, they did, but that wasn't necessarily a mutual exchange. That was coercive. That was, you'll never work in this town if you don't suck this right now. That's completely different. That's a power imbalance. What happens between Bernie Ecclestone and his wife is not a power imbalance. What happens between Rod Stewart and his wife is not a power imbalance. That's a mutual exchange, right? But when you are coercing people to do something, or they won't achieve something, or something won't happen for them, that is a definite power imbalance.
Okay, that I will agree with you on. But what I will say is this. A lot of people who use that power imbalance as a choice, as an excuse, have entered the mutual exchange, but are able to use the power imbalance because the person is more powerful as an excuse. It is used too much as an excuse, is the point I'm trying to make.
You know what? Each individual,
you know what?
each individual situation needs to be examined on its own merits.
I mean, Harvey Weinstein is probably in the right place because if he did things to women completely non-consensually, he should be punished and in the right place.
I mean, but he's not the only person in that organization, in that environment that's done that. And I'm pretty sure the same thing happens in the BBC and STV and all these other places. I'm pretty sure the same thing happens.
Why do you think they covered up for Jimmy for so damn long?
Oh yeah.
Of course it does happen.
I don't share this story because the one of the people who was alleged to have done this claims that it didn't happen. But there was a story in journalism where there was this young gay guy that was living with this person that used to be the deputy editor of a very high-profile publication. And this guy had a very weird fetish, and he wanted this young guy to do it. And when the young guy rejected his advances, he said, "I'm going to blacklist you from every publication in Britain. Your name will be dirt." So this guy had to move to America. And so this happens in journalism in Britain. And this was only like 10 years ago or so.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
now,
these things, I'm pretty sure these things happen, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I look, I'm not saying they don't happen, but what I'm saying is that it has been taken, it has been co-opted, and it has been used to demonize what you would call the mutual exchange in many cases.
Well, right, see, it makes it very difficult if you're in a workplace, because it's not necessarily ever going to be a mutual exchange in a workplace, because you do have someone that holds all the cards, generally, you know?
But then the only way to solve that, and this is going to sound quite shocking,
it's to be ethical and not do these things in the first place and be a normal a proper human being. That's one way of solving it.
But then what you're trying to say is that two people in a workplace should never be allowed to find each other attractive and enter into a relationship.
Many workplaces have that rule.
But that rule shouldn't exist, because no workplace should be able to decide who you love.
I'm just saying, many workplaces do have that rule. You don't fraternize with your staff.
But the only other way that you can solve that, because let's face it,
but hold on.
Part, this sort of situation. No, let me finish.
Well, you tried to butt in on me, so stop your multiple no-no-nos, because you know they really piss me off.
I'm just getting my charger. 1 second.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, but the only way you can solve that, because let's face it, this situation is primarily reported between men and women, is to turn around and say men and women can't work together.
Maybe they shouldn't.
I mean, that's
not the only way you can solve this. You can solve this by being adults, right? Okay. But the problem is that this probably happens more than you actually think.
Yeah.
And I think in many cases where you're saying it has been used as an excuse, it's probably happened to some degree or another. And that's why you can't, blanket this with, it happens all the time, or it doesn't happen at all. It's something you have to look at each individual case.
Yeah. And Tony's got a good point here. It says, not whilst working, what happens in private stays in private, providing it doesn't negatively impact the work. And, I agree with that. And, I was watching a Jordan Peterson interview years ago, and he was asked that question, can men and women actually work together? And his answer was, I don't know.
Yeah.
And do you know what? I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, because this situation is it is primarily reported between men and women. So can men and women work together? And
Yeah,
it's
they can.
certainly something worth exploring.
They can work together. Yeah.
They can work together if they are told to suppress their inane feelings or their inane attractions. And I'm sorry, but I just don't agree with that. I think people should have free choice and freedom to choose their partner, even if that partner is within the workplace.
Yeah, I'm not saying they shouldn't.
Yes, I'm with Ben on this.
Yeah, I'm not saying they shouldn't either. But all that I was saying was that this does occur, and people are coerced, and on a lot of occasions, it's not necessarily overuse of it being an excuse.
Well, I'm saying in the genuine situations where that does occur, criminal charges are completely good.
Mm-hmm.
They should be placed. But the question is, by the hashtag Me Too movement, the waters have been so muddied in what is and is not consensual, and what is and isn't a power imbalance, and what is and isn't a mutual exchange.
So what you've also got here is you have the problem that people don't remember things perfectly.
Yes.
And they effectively make things up in their own head and then put that out as their memory. And everybody does this to one degree or another, and you'll find that you remember something, and then actually, if you go back and think about it, or even better, if you see a recording that was made at the time, and you realise it never happened the way you remember it. It's completely different.
Yeah, and also we paint this narrative that in all of these situations, the one in power is a man, and
we never
the one
said
being
that.
Used or abused is a woman.
No, in fact,
I'm not saying we. I'm saying we as a society.
Well, yeah, that's because traditionally that's the way it's been. Because generally men had more positions of authority, because before we broke up the nuclear family, many women didn't work. And when they did work, they worked for a much shorter period of time, which meant that men got promoted quicker and further than women did.
Let me return to James's story of 10 minutes ago. The man was the person in the position of power, but it was a young man that was the victim.
Yes.
You know, and a lot of the times this is overlooked, and the person James is referring to would be overlooked simply because of his, of his sex, of his gender. He wouldn't be a part of hashtag Me Too because, as he was always told, this is not for you. I was told that when I told my story. I was told this is not for you. So there's been a lot of muddying of the waters of all of this.
There always is. There always is in these things.
Anyway,
John, right.
Let's move on to the funnies. Let's lighten the mood, shall we?
Yeah. So,
I'm sorry if that got a bit deep for people, by the way.
Well, if you don't have these kind of conversations, then how are you supposed to work out if you're doing things right or wrong?
Well,
and that's part of back to where we were about the Ministry of Truth. Because if you're not allowed to discuss these things and people don't want to hear it, then you might as well live in a nanny state. Yeah.
Not only that, as you've seen from this exchange, me and John don't always agree on things.
No, of course we don't.
And we don't have to agree. Well,
yes, but
James has got my back though.
I've absolutely got Ben's back. Well, I say this,
I don't think I said anything against what you were actually saying. I just said it was a matter of degree, and all I think I said was that yes, it does happen, and it probably happens more than you think it does.
Tell me something funny, John.
Right. The SNP have taken over the Scottish Caledonian Sleeper Service.
No.
Yes, they have. They have.
Have they started painting the windows on the train yet?
I don't know, but the Scottish Government have taken control of the Caledonian Rail Sleeper Service. Now, let me just say it. Serco had its licence to operate the overnight cross-border rail link terminated early by MSPs last year after the firm attempted to renegotiate its contract. The £800 million agreement signed in 2015 would be due to run until 2030, but Serco argued the need to to exercise its rebase clause in an effort to put the service on a more sustainable financial footing. Now, Serco's I think they've just finished upgrading all the trains.
Fantastic.
So
aye, we'll just get them to upgrade the trains and then we'll steal them back.
So
Aye.
the SNP said the train will be operated at an arm's length Scottish government body from June the 25th when the current agreement runs out. Yeah. Nice. The move was not a reflection on the quality of the product that has been developed. Oh, but it's not. Or the commitment of the staff, but based on value for money. So yeah, they've let Serco upgrade all the trains, and as you say, they have now stolen them back. So there you go. Well done, SNP.
That's the Scottish National Party for you, baby. Woo!
Meanwhile, New York City, in a bid to race towards net zero, have decided they're going to clamp down on wood-fired pizza establishments.
Oh God! I saw. Did you see the video of this guy that was throwing the pizzas in New York City?
Yeah. So you can't.
What?
So if you want a wood-fired pizza in New York City, you're out of luck because they're saving the planet by stopping it. Have you ever been to France? Right? France,
yes.
Rural France exists only to provide wood for burning. Everybody in France has at least 1 or 2 wood-burning stoves. The entire place runs on nothing but wood. Right? So, no matter how many wood-fired pizza ovens you have in New York City, you're not going to make a dent in the amount of wood that gets burnt in the world. And let's face it, how do you think they cook in the African deserts and jungles? Yeah. How do you think the tribes in the Amazon cook? Yeah. How do these people, you think they maybe burn wood? You know? I mean, the whole thing's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Right. And I'm going to finish with an unfortunate event.
Tell us, John.
So
tell us. I'm ready, baby.
I'm going to read this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to read it from the paper. Now, I'm not quite sure what paper it's from, but it doesn't look like the Sunday Sport, okay?
Okay.
So, a man has been left red-faced after firefighters had to be called to hospital to remove a tool from his penis. The man became stuck after his penis swelled up in a ring spanner on Monday and he was unable to remove it.
Wait, sorry, he put a ring spanner
over his... No, he put his penis through the ring of a ring spanner. Right? Now, there are questions here. There are questions here.
Got some weird kinks.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering about the practicality of how one would do that.
It depends how big. Well, I mean, one of the questions that's not explained at this point is what size of ring spanner it was. Right? and we don't know what size of penis it was either. But right, but to move on, Tweeds Head's firefighters, I think this is in America, right? Said it was not uncommon for them to be called to such jobs where people leave it too late to ask for help. Okay. We use, this is the part that gets me. The fireman says, we use a tiny angle grinder. That's ear operated and use measuring tape to protect the skin and slowly zip away at it while keeping water running on it so as it doesn't get too hot, firefighter Peter Sutherland said.
Stop the world. Just stop it. I want off. I want off.
That's a classic, isn't it?
You know what? If people are genuinely doing this, If this is the level we are falling to as humanity, then perhaps the Ministry of Truth is a good idea. You've left me on a.
Andrew asked a question, and there's a third option. There's always a third option, Andrew, because if this is America, it could be Whitworth, couldn't it?
I don't know.
So Imperial, Metric, or Whitworth?
You know what?
So Robin, have you gone for a 10mm? That's not a very big spanner.
Can I share one short story before we end?
Please do.
Of course you can.
Actually, I don't know if I should. But okay, I'll do it. All right. It's very, very. It's probably actually more embarrassing than that story, to be honest. So I was invited to. I was telling John about this, but I didn't tell him the conclusion of the story. Right. So I was invited to a health spa by my friend's insistence a few weeks ago. And on the way down there on the train, I saw this woman reading some sort of book about John Major, and it stuck in my head because who the hell would read a book on John Major? And anyway, went to the health spa.
Sorry, carry on.
I can't even believe I'm sharing this. But anyway, I went to the health spa, and then this woman, started massaging me, and great swells of relief came over me. But then, unfortunately, something else swelled. You can guess what? But then, so I had that.
Her tender ministrations brought you to life.
Oh, no, because yes, I still had the image of that woman's John Major.
Oh,
book.
No, you suck man.
No, obviously, no. I did not. No, I do not in any way or shape or form fancy John Major, for Christ's sake.
Edwin and Curry's been there. God damn it!
No, because I already had that image in my head from this woman's book on the train.
Right.
And then when this woman was massaging me, then that happened, and then it was awful. And
awful. That's just awful. I mean, let's just say.
But I was on my belly, so she didn't know what was happening. I was thinking and she got to one part of my back that was really painful, and she said, "Oh, I'll avoid that." And then I said, "No, keep on going there," because I just thought that the pain might alleviate the problem. Yeah. But then I kept on trying my hardest. No, and eventually came the two dreaded words, "turn over." What could I say?
I'm sorry.
I couldn't say, "Oh, don't worry, it's not about." I couldn't say it's not about you, darling. I was just thinking about John Major.
Even the cat is leaving in disgust. Oh, good God! And how do you extricate yourself from that position? Did she say, "Oh, don't worry, it happens all the time"?
John, you did not need to ask a follow-up question.
I think I've said enough.
You did not need. I thought that was brilliant. I enjoyed that.
Oh, I'd like to know how it turned out. Did he turn?
And you know what? On that note, we'll leave you to decide for yourselves. John, say goodbye.
I'm going to say goodbye. And I think I've got a button here called long outro. So I'm going to play that for a change and see how that goes. So I'd like to thank you one and all for attending this episode 230 of Chasing Chasing Descent Live with me, John, with Ben, and with our special guest, James Bembridge. Thank you.
Who I hope will come back and do this again.
Yeah.
Well, I will when I get a microphone. Yeah, sure.
It's been great. For you.
Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yo, I I've got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave. 6 feet deep under, but my body won't decay. Cause my messages are timeless, so they'll put them on display. Oh yeah, I rap with a certainty, I have a sense of urgency. A message for eternity, for everyone internally. I had some people burning me, but now they fucking learn to see I ain't the one to fuck with. Now they looking nervously, and I don't really care what you think of me respectfully. You can kick rocks if you think you're fucking better, see. I will outwork you, turn you to an enemy. Hurt you so bad that you're gonna need some therapy. I got the motherfucking recipe. I've been cooking up hits, I'ma leave a legacy. You'll be looking small when you're standing right next to me. I'm 5'10", bitch, but I'm 10 feet. Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yeah, I'ma do it my way. I can't contain it, I'm coming out with a statement. You really changed, man, all your music and arrangement. You don't know shit, shut your mouth, you can save it. I'm the same dude that got his come up from the basement. 100 songs, 100 weeks, didn't change it. Experiments, development, intelligence, and patience. I'll do it all again, cause I never feel complacent. Let's keep the good vibes, positivity's contagious. I'm never looking back, cause I made a life that's passionate. A college graduate suppressing all his talents, yeah. He found a way to go and change, become an advocate. For taking control of your life, go out and battle. And you think you have a dream, then act on it. Get after it, get out your head and fucking capture it. You got one life to master it. Don't give up on your future, we all start losers. We're all late bloomers, gotta start them through the sewer. What you say? Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up,